that there. Wonderful. So we're moving on, like I was just saying, from the hypnotic language patterns, although there's so many of those, and we may come back to some more in the future, and moving into exploring NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Um, a word, a name, a title, which has as much nonsense in it as a lot of the stuff you'll read about NLP, because it created, as quite often happens, its own language, which even if you've studied and then stepped away from for 6 months, can be somewhat confusing. So my aim is not just to share with you, because there's quite a lot of NLP that's gone into the I Meditate stuff over the years. It's not to share, just to give you a kind of working knowledge of how you can use it and apply it, and but also just learning the thinking and the ideas behind NLP shifts how we respond to the world. So it's a good thing to explore. Um, and I'm going to strip away, hopefully the best I can, a lot of the gobbledygook speech that's come around it, so it makes sense. That's the aim, anyway. But before we do that, I thought we'd start with just a short little meditation. So, because today's is predominantly thinking and note making, although don't have to make notes. Some of this can just go and be picked up on, and you'll realize what it is without having to think about it too much. But then at 7:30 today, the PDF with the notes from today's session will also appear in the group on Facebook. So that should be there in about 15 minutes. So let's go have a fidget. Let's get comfortable. And let's begin just by, we'll take a nice deep breath in, and then just on the breath out, just allow your eyes to close as you relax and focus in. So taking a deep breath in. As you breathe out, just allowing your eyes to close just in the time you need to take to relax, to let go of the day. And take a moment to find stillness in your body. Where within you feels most still? Could be a foot or a toe, could be your elbow, could be a hand. Just where does stillness begin in your body now? And as you begin to notice that stillness, allow your breath to deepen, flowing gently in and out. Just breathing in and out, finding that stillness as you breathe in and out, being aware of stillness within the body now. And imagine that with each breath, you are returning home, not to a place, but to a presence within you. I wonder what that feels like, returning home to a presence within you. And in that space, imagine a soft light, a wisdom rising up from deep inside. It has no voice, yet it knows. It has no shape, yet it understands. And just let that light remind you, you are more than your thoughts. You are more than your thoughts. More than your past. You are here now. Ready to grow. To see with new eyes. And to meet yourself and others with compassion. And when you're ready, just gently open your eyes. Being here, be here now. And so, as I said before, tonight we begin exploring a set of beliefs, which I didn't really say, but actually what we're going to do is explore a set of beliefs that sit at the heart of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. But when I say beliefs, they are not rules. They're not even necessarily facts. They are presuppositions, ways of viewing the world that open up possibility, compassion, and change. The world is inevitably what we tell ourselves it is. That is how we experience it. If we tell ourselves that there's some dodgy character waiting on every street corner, we will start spotting every dodgy character waiting on a street corner. But we'll block out the nice people that may also be on street corners. So we'll look at these presuppositions, these ways of viewing the world that can open up possibility, compassion, and change for you. But also, when we take them on board, when we use them, and the idea of using belief is something a little different. But if a belief can serve you for a certain period of time and make a difference in your life, then we can use that belief. We can adopt that belief for the time that it works for us. And the ones we're looking at tonight, there's quite a few, but I wanted to choose ones that really align with the attitude behind I meditate since the start, that lean into the more spiritual side of things as well. They also connect with ideas of inner awareness, self-leadership, and just the art of being present. So If you are making notes, then we're going to look at them in groups of well, in the 4 groups. Each group will have 3 of these beliefs in. If you want to write it down, then the first group, the first cluster is self and perception. The second is compassion and healing. The third is connection and communication. The fourth I've called inner power. And you may choose to write them down, or you may just choose to listen and take it in that way, because there is a reminder, a prompt sheet from this session. So let's look at our first presupposition, our first belief. This is that the map is not the territory. The map is not the territory. The way we think it is not necessarily the way it truly is. And we can quite often confuse the map for the territory, confusing what we're telling ourselves about reality for being reality. The map can be useful, it can help us get where we want to get, but it can also be a hindrance. Oh, I seem to have lost my camera. Hang on a minute. So the map is not the territory. I'll just keep talking and pressing things at the same time. It's the best way of describing it for you that will make sense. So if someone comes to you with an issue, a problem, and they say, I have this problem and it's caused by X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z may not actually be the real reason for why they have that problem. Because we base our actions on our mental map of the world. Everything we do is based upon our mental map of the world, how we tell ourselves the world is. And if you understand this, you understand also that there are always ways to improve that map. Because when we've talked about limiting beliefs, a limiting belief is part of the map. And at the time, we might think, I couldn't possibly get that job. I couldn't possibly go for that job. That's the limiting belief. That's the map. But the territory may say differently. The territory may say that we can go for this. We can achieve that thing. If you're stuck in life, then you tend to not realize that the map is not the territory. And we tend to react in 2 ways to that. We either get frustrated and angry with life, or we become really passive with life, especially when somebody talks about us being able to make a change. If you approach somebody who's stuck, who doesn't realize that what they're telling themselves is reality isn't necessarily reality, and you say, look, things could be different. What about this? What about that? They'll either be like, yeah, I know. Or they will respond in a way that is kind of like, well, I'm okay as I am. I don't need to change. Nothing wrong with me. I can't change. I mean, they're talking about something I can't change. There's stuck on the map for sure. Flexibility and adaptability are powerful traits for survival and satisfaction. And knowing that the map is not the territory can help make us more flexible and adaptable. It seems this way, but maybe there's another way. It's like this now, but I wonder how it can be. rather than, well, this is just the way it is, so I'm going to have to put up with it. The second of those, it's the way it is, I'm going to have to put up with it, literally is confusing the map for the territory. But the this is how it is now. What can I do to make a change and make things different? Is acknowledging that the map is not the territory. The second of these beliefs, and I think I've mentioned this in the past in a different context. The second of these is, and there's different ways of wording it, but basically we respect each person's model of the world. Each one of us comes to where we are in life with a different experience. Something, you know, we've all had different experiences that shape how we again see the world, from making us feel it's a place of opportunity and excitement to a place that's kind of closed to us and fearful. That's somebody's model of the world, of reality. It isn't necessarily true, but if you imagine someone comes to you and they go, I'm a really bad person and I don't deserve to be successful and enjoy my life, and I'm miserable. The map is not the territory. So instantly we go, well, that's not necessarily the case. But to actually be that blunt with someone could be quite a jar. And you might get that angry or passive response that I spoke about. But if we respect each person's model of the world, accept, we don't have to believe it, but accept that whatever, however they talk about things is how it is for them. And you're never going to change it by being outside of that and trying to chip away from the outside. By respecting a person's model of the world, by accepting their worldview and stepping into it and using their frame of reference, we can help shape and change their reality. The classic, the one example I think of, which is kind of a bizarre one from past, is, and I know I've shared this before, but I was at the Mind, Body and Spirit Festival. It was a great gathering. It was a, what's it called? Tribal conscious tribal. It's one, I can never remember which way around I was gathering. And I was doing a talk and I had a stall there, a stand there as well. And this guy came up, hypnosis, I've been kidnapped by aliens. Can you help me remember? Because they took my memory away. If I'm honest, my inner response was, what a nut job. What on earth is he on about? However, if I want to help him have that experience he wants, or help him get whatever the benefit is he can have from that, because let's face it, there may be problems in his life which he's putting down to this alien kidnapping that he can't remember. And the key to getting past those problems may be within that map of the world that he's created. If I go into that and say, mate, you're mad, there aren't such things as aliens, they don't probe you and kidnap you. What are you talking about? Now let's sit down and talk about your problem realistically. He's going to walk out the door. He's going to walk out the door. So the second presupposition is respect each person's model of the world, even if you don't think it's right. You know, people will say, oh, I want a past life regression to help me with this problem I've got now. There are hypnotherapists and people out there who will go, well, that's nonsense. It's not real. It's not a real memory. You can't actually respect that person's model of the world, respect their map and go, okay, let's see what you can find that will make a difference to you now. And regardless of whether you believe it's a real past life for that person or not, if they have whether it is a past life memory or whether it's a complete fantasy, if exploring their map helps and changing that map helps make a difference to them now, That's all that matters. That's actually all that matters. Friend of mine, when she had some problems, she's very, very stressed. Amazing job she'd been doing. And but most people do the job she'd been doing for like 5 or 6 years and then move on to something else. And she'd been doing it for about 15. So she was like burnout time. And she was interested in shamanism and all this, that, and the other. And she had this bit of a breakdown, went to see a CBT therapist who, when she said, what are your interests? What are things? She was like, oh, I'm into like shamanism and I'm interested in things like that. And she turned around and said, well, that's all nonsense. And people that believe that tend to have OCD. That's not respecting someone's model of the world. Surprisingly, that therapist wasn't able to help her. So respect each person's model of the world. And even in our conversations, do we have to be right? Or can we just step into that person's world and see it from their point of view? The third in this cluster of self and perception is people make the best choices open to them at the time. So in any one given situation, whatever choice we make will be the best choice we can that we can see at that moment in time. And I mean, one thing that shows this is how many times have we done something or said something in a conversation or chosen to say something, and then you look back and go, oh, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd said that. And hindsight's a wonderful thing, but in the moment, people make the best choices open to them at that time. And that's based on all of their past journey and their map of the world and everything. If we acknowledge this, first of all, it helps us not judge someone's actions because it means they've done what they could see it as best at the time. But by honoring this as well, it allows us again to step into that person's model of the world to, what's the word? To help affect change. And that can be as simple again as with NLP, with hypnosis, and even with the hypnotic language. There are ways of taking somebody back into a moment and helping them explore. But also when we're working with change, we're helping people transform their inner selves, their reality, however you want to describe it. We always aim to create choices because people will make the best choices open to them at the time. So if you've got somebody who's stuck in a situation and you can open up their thinking beyond their usual map, the moment that map expands, that model of the person's world has expanded. They now have more choices available to them at making that choice. And that choice can be to let go of something from the past. It can be a choice to allow themselves time to heal. It can be a choice to change a job. It can be a choice to feel better about certain things. It can be a choice to forgive. But just within those first three presuppositions, those three beliefs, it unlocks a lot of power, not just for us helping other people, but also for our own growth. If we remember that in any situation, if we're struggling, what we're telling ourselves is the reality, the map, the way it is not necessarily the way it is. So from that framework, if we can then go, okay, well, I'm going to make my best choice when I make that choice. So how many choices can I create that alter and expand that model of the world, my map, to reach out? So what we're going to do, how are we doing on time? Oh, my life. What we're going to do, I was going to do breakout rooms with it, but I think I may do it differently and just do a drop in any thoughts because that'll be a bit quicker, I think. So what I want you to do is think of a time when you misunderstood someone or they misunderstood you. And you can always revisit this afterwards and go into more detail. Think of a time when you misunderstood someone or they misunderstood you. And how may these three beliefs, the map is not the territory, respect a person's model of the world, and people make the best choices open to them at any one time, how might these beliefs change the way you remember or respond to that moment? How may these beliefs change the way you remember or respond to that moment? Back to recording. Fabulous. So next, our next cluster, compassion and healing. Person and behavior are different. Person and behavior are different. We are not our actions. And the idea that we are more than our behavior is quite a profound idea. You can actually write many volumes about this from your own life once you unlock this insight. If we take a moment just to look at how deeply people are able to change and why they change, most people are on the verge of a very expanded way of being in the world and don't even know it. We have no idea what any person's true potential or destiny is. So whenever someone tells someone that they'll not amount to anything, that person is failing to understand the truth of this proposition. The truth that we are more than our behaviors. In many places, a pattern of behavior or even a single act can define you. The idea of human birthright or inalienable rights that many kind of constitutional governments are charged with supporting is really a profound philosophical position NLP expresses as well. Whatever you've done wrong, learn from it, but do not let it define you. I've got a friend of mine who I was at college with, and I'm sorry about the camera thing. I'm not sure quite why it's not doing. Um, I've got a friend went to college with that I hadn't seen him for years. Kind of appeared on Facebook and that, and then we got together a bit back, and we had they came round for a bite to eat, and we were him and me were chatting and catching up in the kitchen, having a beer, and he suddenly got very serious, which is unnerving in itself. And he basically turned out, and he'd been involved in some quite bad biker groups and done some stuff that he did what, again, in the moment seemed like the right thing to be part of that group and to whatever, but in hindsight, really, and he kind of basically confessed to all this stuff he'd done. And he said, I'm a really bad person. And that is where this comes in. Because I said to him, I said, are you doing those things now? He's like, no. I said, okay. So you're not doing that now. Have you any intention ever going back there and doing that kind of thing again? He's like, no. I said, well, then you're not a bad person, are you? You're a person who's done bad things, but now you're living your life differently. You've changed and you're moving forward. Do not let your past define you, because you go through life thinking you're a bad person. You're either going to just carry on being a bad person or attract bad people or attract trouble. You are no longer that person you were. If you're not going to do it again, that's not who you are. Do not let your past define you. So learn from it. Whatever you've done, learn from it. Don't let it define you. Whatever your limitations are, get clear on how to move forward in harmony with your abilities and limits. Don't just use willpower to try harder or sentence yourself to a life of shame. You're bigger than that, whether you know it or not. Imagine the talent and the energy that can be liberated in the world as this idea becomes better understood and more widely expressed. Think of the kids that go through school, especially more in the old school system where they didn't sign up people who may be more creative than intellectual. Don't don't let your behaviors define you. If somebody's turned around and go, well, you're never going to amount to nothing, and you kind of, because you messed around in school, don't let that define you. You messed around in school. What do you know? Well, I need know now that I need to focus in. I need to learn. Yes, I didn't see it, but I know you posted about it, and that's exactly it. Um, so yeah, they're really beautiful and profound things when you start applying them to situations in life. So the second one in this section, compassion and healing, is every behavior has a purpose or usefulness in some context. Every behavior has its usefulness in some context. And it's an idea that can be kind of, well, is very counterintuitive. There are many behaviors that seem like they make no sense, and they are simply irritating or inconvenient at best, or criminal, threatening, or worse at their far end. Milton Erickson, who we know about, the famous psychiatrist and hypnotherapist, um, that a lot of NLP was based upon. He did something called utilization, and we've talked about this with the language and the hypnosis, where you're using whatever is presented to get you where you want to get. And it often sometimes involves finding the hidden power or motivation within a behavior, um, that was the easiest to try to stop or ignore. So, thinking, do you know somebody who does something that troubles you or otherwise seems to be an issue or problem? If you do, then think about ways that the behavior might be used to support some kind of change. That one of the greatest examples of this, and I know I've said it here before, and it always makes me smile when I hear someone else say it. If someone procrastinates, this illustrates this point better than anything else. Procrastination, when we put things off that we could do and either do nothing or do something else instead because we're putting off doing that thing. So procrastination, and when it's done well, is an art form, I think. But procrastination is the ability to put off doing something. So procrastinate your procrastination is the most wonderful example of how you can utilize a behavior to help make a change. I never get anything done. I always procrastinate. Oh, have you tried procrastinating your procrastination? Do you know what? A week later, that person turns around and goes, I took on board what you said, and well, I've got a load of stuff done this week that I wouldn't have got done normally. What were you doing? I was procrastinating. I was putting it off. Brilliant. So you're using the behavior of putting things off to bypass the problem of putting things off. It's a wonderful, 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 wonderful idea, belief. Every behavior has a purpose. In some context, you can find it useful. This one is one you might have heard. It's bandied about in business, left, right, and center. There is no failure, only feedback. And for some people, it can take a while to grasp that. But it's all just about how you approach the things you've done. If something didn't work, did you fail, or have you learned just another way of not to do it? In which case, you've now got more possible ways of finding what it is. There is no failure, there's no feedback. If something doesn't go right, if a part of your life hasn't gone right, just stop and go, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? And then once you've learned it and you've understood those lessons, make sure the next time you heed the lessons and you do it differently. That way there is no failure, there's only feedback. There is no failure, only feedback. So it's a nice, simple one, but it's encouraging when people kind of, I've worked with people who've been like, oh, I've messed up, I've done this, I've done that. I remember the first time, and it was the first and only time because it was such a success. I decided I was never going to do it again. I worked with somebody who had in 6 months had spent 10 grand on cocaine, and his missus was chucking him out, and he just about to lost his job, and it was the typical kind of addict story of has a good life and then it all crumbles. And he's like, I've really failed. I've really, really failed. It's like, well, you've not failed. You've made some choices. Yeah, feedback makes you better in a person completely. You've made some choices. What has making those choices and the results from it taught you? Well, it was a stupid thing to do. Okay, so it's a stupid thing to do. Do you want to do that again? No. And obviously, there was a hypno element to help with the addiction side of it, but we did one session, and part of what helped that session shift and get his head where it needed to be was the realization you haven't failed. You've just not gone about it quite the best way you can, and now you need to look at it a different way. Um, so there is no failure, only feedback. So a prompt to think about, something to ponder on this one to help kind of grasp some of it more. To bring to mind a behavior that you've judged harshly. Think of a behavior you've judged harshly. It could be somebody else's behavior, or if you're feeling bold and brave, it can be something you've done that you've judged yourself harshly with. And ask yourself, what if that behavior had a hidden purpose? What if that behavior had a hidden purpose? What if it was a call for something? What if it was a call for something? What if the behavior isn't outwardly what it seems? What if it had a deeper purpose? So when you're going back through these, ponder that one, have a think about it. Moving on halfway through into the next set of beliefs and ideas, we're looking at connection and communication. And this is about partly how we connect with ourselves, but also how we connect with others. And the first is resistance is a signal of lack of rapport. So in any situation, when you are talking to somebody, whether it's talking about life and helping them maybe see a brighter future, to help them working on some change work, just, talking them through a problem at work, chatting about something with family members. If there is resistance, then you're not connected. You haven't got that rapport. Rapport is when your communication flows both ways. It flows easily and effortlessly. But if somebody resists, if you drop an idea in, same with when we're using hypnotic language. If you see, if you're using hypnotic language and somebody is going along, you can see that they're drifting in and out of that kind of hypnotic state as they're reflecting on stuff, and all of a sudden they hit a wall. Then then that's because that rapport has been lost, or maybe it wasn't there in the first place. And there's many things that can break rapport. We've talked about, when we're talking about use of language, is how people see the world. Some people will talk about, I walked into this room and all I could see was the mess everywhere. Other people walk into a room and they'll go, oh, all I could hear was the noise. And other people go, I walked into the room, all I could smell was the food cooking. Could be exactly the same room, but each person, because they have a dominant sense, will describe that experience through that. Now, if you've got somebody who's, say, emotive and very much, I walked into the room and I could really feel an atmosphere in there. And you say to that person, and you can see a different way of looking at that room. They won't. They don't think in seeing. They don't think in looking at a room. They sense a room. But that is enough to break rapport. That's enough to break that connection. So things like being aware of how another person is speaking and matching their again, it's just stepping into their model of the world, really. If somebody's talking about how they're not feeling this, they're not feeling that, there's no matter how much you say, see this, see that, or do you hear what I'm saying? It's never going to resonate with them. You've got to speak in a way that holds that rapport, and we'll do more on rapport along the way. There's different attitudes to it. There's a good friend of mine who I trained with years ago. I think his is the best way of gaining rapport. There's so much, there's whole books and libraries written about it, and it's way overcomplicated for what you need, really. So resistance is a signal of lack of rapport. The meaning of communication is the response it elicits. The meaning, and communication isn't obviously always just the spoken word, but the meaning isn't what you intend when you say it. The meaning is the response that comes back to you. And it's one of the most fundamental and early lessons to get from your study if we're looking at NLP. Regardless of what you intended to say, the communication is what the other person heard. So by carefully observing the other person's response, you can determine whether you've communicated effectively. People who fail to take responsibility for this fail to communicate effectively. You could say that they don't care if they're broadcasting on the wrong station and nobody is hearing them. Of course, you'll not be able to do this if the person is purposely misunderstanding you. Some people just go, oh, I don't want to listen. That's a tactic that some people use when they want to cast doubt on what you're saying or manipulate you. But as a sensitive communicator, you'll learn to tell the difference and develop creative responses to that kind of thing. And NLP is a wonderful art to help you deal with manipulative people. So the meaning of the communication lies in the response you get. We've all been there where we've said something meaning well and somebody's taken it the wrong way. The meaning of our communication is whatever they heard. It's not what we intended. Finally, on this section, all communication should increase choice. All communication should increase choice. When it comes to change work and helping people make changes in their lives, remember, a person will always choose the best choice they have in any one moment. So when we communicate with people, especially if we're trying to help them, if we're trying to lift them, help them learn, the more choices we can pass on to them through our communication, the better their experience and the more options they will have in the future. And when you pay attention to the frame of communication and when you develop learning and flexibility, which is what NLP teaches us, you really do. NLP, kind of along with the hypnotic language stuff, really it makes you kind of like a master communicator. You develop the ability to expand choices. If you ever watch any of the clips I put up about with Tony Robbins, he is a master communicator. He speaks to people about their problems and he opens that problem up, explores the map, helps them realize it's not the map. The map isn't necessarily reality. And then he gives them choices on how they can move forward, all through his communication. A bit like a blunt chisel sometimes, I think he is, but it's still impressive to watch. So yeah, the ability to help people expand choices, it really can make a big difference. It really helps people feel good and see possibility and positivity in life. Hidden frames limit choices. Rigidity limits choice. Failing to see people's inner resources limits choice. And all these presuppositions, these beliefs help us expand choice. And by infusing our communications with the stuff that we're learning, you can expand your own and other people's choices. Listen carefully to like a next conversation you overhear. There's probably various ways that one or both parties are limiting their choices. Ask yourself, What do you detect in a conversation that limits choice? You can do this when you're watching TV. You can listen to people being interviewed. You can listen to programs, films, listen to the radio, um, and listen. What in that conversation is limiting choice? What in that conversation is closing down possibilities? Um, how then would you communicate differently? How can you knock down barriers to choice when you communicate? And the prompt, the food for thought on this one is, what's one conversation you've had that didn't go how you hoped? What's one conversation you had that didn't go how you hoped? And what might these beliefs teach you about that moment? So on to our fourth and final batch, and this is the inner power. Um, this is probably some of my favorites. Like I say, there are more, but these I think are the key ones. Inner power. And I've I've had when speaking with people and clients and stuff, people get to the realization of this first one themselves. And when you get to the realization of this, you become more confident in your ability to make changes. So now the number 10, if you're numbering them, is people have the internal resources they need to succeed. This is echoed by Carl Rogers' idea that all of us, given the right environment, have the resources we need to inside to grow fully as individuals. If we're working with change work, if we're just wanting to make the lives of the people around about us better by helping them expand their choices and helping them go within to find resources that they need to succeed. And people might say, oh, I wouldn't begin to know how to be confident giving a talk, say. I'm going to go with that. I wouldn't know how to be confident to give a talk. Okay. Is there an area in your life where you are confident? There is. What is it? And I don't know. I cook tea tonight, so I can say, well, I'm really confident that I can cook well. Okay, so you're really confident you can cook well. So you know how to be confident, do you not? Yeah, because you know how to be confident when you're cooking. Yeah. So there's a part of you that knows how to be confident, right? So if there's a part of you that knows how to be confident, what can that part bring to the next time you have to give a talk? How can how can that part of you that's confident teach that part of you that is going to give that talk to be confident giving that talk? Why are you confident when you're cooking? Because I really know my ingredients. So you really know your ingredients, yeah. And I remember the recipes. So you remember the recipes. Okay, that's great. So you know your stuff and you remember what you need to remember, and that allows you to be confident. Yeah. So how can you know what you need to do for that talk well and really know your stuff and though be confident? Oh, I guess I could. I guess if I actually was to sit down and really just make sure I've gone over it and over it, and I know what's there, and I could be confident because that's how I'm confident when I'm cooking. So if you do the same thing when you're doing your talk and preparing for your talk as you do when you're preparing food, then I guess you can be confident, and the end result will be a wonderful dish to partake of, right? Yeah, it can be that simple. It can be that easy. But just a belief that each of us has the potential to make our lives good. And good doesn't mean the stereotypical good. It can mean good within the circumstances we find ourselves, the best it can be. Because when we start doing that and we realize we can do that more, we have the inner resources to expand beyond that. Our mind and body affect each other. We know this. I think I'm, you know, preaching to the converted on this one, if I was to say it. But they really do. Mind and body affect each other. If you're nervous, if you're thinking, oh my God, I've got to go and give that talk, you get butterflies. Hopefully it stops the butterflies. If you get really nervous, well, it really affects your body. Um, so mind and body affect each other. But if you think back to some of the stuff we've done where we've kind of taken an idea or thought and given it a shape or a color, moved it around. That's our using our mind and our body together to help affect change. So your mind and your body affect each other. There is a marvelous book, I think I've still got it, that I can recommend. It might even been someone off here that recommended it to me in the first. No, it wasn't. I remember who recommended it to me. I will, if you want a really interesting read on mind and body and how it affects, I'll post the thing up in the Facebook group. And finally, as responsible people, we can run our own minds and control our results. We can take control of our thinking, and we can control our results. We can control how we react to the world around us. We can change how we react to the world around us. As people, we have the inner power and ability to affect change and to take control of how we step into the world. And within these 12 beliefs, presuppositions, are pretty well the essence, give or take, well, add a few more, of what's underpinned most of what's driven the work I do. That belief that we all have that ability to succeed, to make changes, that our mind and bodies do work together, and we can use that to help make changes, and that ultimately we do have that responsibility, or we can be responsible people and take control of that process. And that's the difference between when therapies and things work and when they don't. Because if people turn up for a therapy or coaching expecting somebody else to fix them, to switch the controls over, then you're on a 50-50 chance that's going to work. Whereas if that person comes, a bit like the guy who came to me with the cocaine habit and said, this needs to change, it needs to change now, and I need to be the person that makes this change. He'd taken responsibility for all his brain and controls. I just helped guided him through some possibilities that opened up choices, because I believed he had the eternal resources to succeed, to get where he wanted to get. And because of knowing how to communicate that, how to share that, because I wasn't judging him on his behavior, I wasn't seeing him as the addict. I don't agree. I hate that. I know it works for people with AA when they're with the drinking, when they tell them you'll always be an alcoholic. Wow, there's a hypnotic suggestion for you, isn't it? Reinforced by the whole group that you're with. You've got a drink problem. You cannot have a drink problem. So it's a lot healthier. Um, every behavior and purpose, all of it. And there is no failure. If there's no failure, I don't judge you. I don't go, oh, you're a failure. I go, okay, that didn't work. What can we learn from it? And how can what you learn make life better for you in the future? And by stepping into other people's, we're never going to know what it's like to be another person, but we can step into their framework of the world, their model of the world, realizing that actually that map that they've laid out for themselves isn't the reality. It isn't the defined path they have to take. We can create more paths for them to step out on. And if you've done the mind mapping, if I've ever taken you through the mind mapping, where we imagine a map coming out and laying out all around us, that's the map, is not the territory, and right in action right there. So for our final thought with that last selection of beliefs, what would it mean for you to believe that you have all you need within you already? What would that mean? So I'm going to invite you now just to close your eyes again. Take a nice deep breath in. Breathe out, relaxing. Going to take another deep breath in. This time, breathe into the space that these 12 truths have touched. And imagine them not just as ideas, but as seeds planted within you. Because a belief that the map is not the territory means you are free to redraw your inner world. A belief that people do the best they can brings peace to your relationships. A belief that you are more than your past means your future is unwritten. And guess what? You get to be the author. And a belief that all communication can increase choice reminds us that our words are sacred. So let these beliefs, truths, ideas become your inner compass. Let them guide how you see, how you speak, how you meet yourself and the world. Because we are never stuck. We are unfolding. Take another nice deep breath in. Breathing out. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes, ready to have a great week.